Hey, welcome back to Tuesday afternoon.
Hi everybody! Today we're going to make some peppermints. And one very spooky peppermint for those of you that miss Halloween. I didn't just want to make one peppermint. I thought 3 would be good. So you can decide which one you want to make, or might as well make them all. I start with a flat disc of aluminum foil, just under 2 inches. This will be the inside of your ornament. Made a template, make sure your foil fits right in the center, with plenty of space around it. I went ahead and made a sketch above so I could use those as references. Once again, I'll be using original Sculpt for these ornaments. You're going to want to knead your polymer clay and then roll it out. This aids in getting out the bubbles, but also gives you the desired thickness. Cover the aluminum foil in polymer clay. Whichever way you decide to do it is up to you. I usually lay mine down and then wrap the clay around the aluminum foil. Continue to smooth out the clay and make the edges round, like a peppermint. I'll be using glass gems for the eyes. Choose a bag that has an assortment of sizes. You can find these at Dollar General or Walmart. Make sure that they have flat, small gems. You can also use clay if you can't find them. But these gems fit perfectly on my sketch, so I think it'll look good. This ornament has brows, so I'm going to find the location of where I want the eyes, and then I'm going to push the eye down into the clay. It will aid in me making the brow and know where the eyes are. To make the indentation, you want to take the curved side and push it down into the clay. Smooth out the edges. This isn't going to be a very deep brow, so you just smooth out the edges and just push up just a little bit. At the top of the brow in the illustration, you can notice like a ball shape. We're going to use just some clay and stick that on. Just smooth out and do the same to the other side. Now put the eyes back in with the curved side facing up. Looks good. We're just going to put in a rough kind of sketch of where we want the mouth to be because we're putting in the cheeks next. And you want a general idea where the mouth is going to start and where it's going to end. Now remember, when you're putting on the cheeks, you want them to hang over the eye a little bit. And then just smooth out the clay. We're going to be putting on the nose next. Kind of rounded to smooth it out into the correct position. Don't forget to smooth out above the top of the nose so it has a nice finish. Since we have the cheeks in, we can commit to the mouth. Go in a little bit, reshape the mouth, and make it more defined. We're going to need to do that because now we're putting in the upper lip. Just make a nice little roll of clay and smooth it in up towards the nose. I think this happy peppermint is coming along quite nicely. Now we're adding the lower lip. Just get a little piece of clay and push it in and then smooth it out. One more time over the mouth, making sure it's smooth and has rounded edges. Yep, I think this sculpting is done. What do you think? Next, we're going to do the worried peppermint. I set this ornament beside the one that's already completed so I make sure that the eyes are in the correct position. Next, we're going to put the cheeks on just like we did before. I don't need to show that since I've already shown you how to do that. The cheeks need to go over the eye just a little. This little peppermint has a worried brow line, so we just push the eyes in, and we're going to lay a piece of clay over the eyes tilted upward. And then just repeat the process on the other side. Here I'm just cleaning up an edge. Now, all you need to do is smooth out the brows. Remember to smooth out below the brow and above the brow. You don't want a hard edge or an edge that doesn't blend into the face. Next, we're going to put the tongue in. It's just a round ball. Kind of flatten it a little bit before I stick it in between my fingers. Oop, a little too much clay. Okay, you just smooth it out with a tool. And you're going to want to add in a line down the center. Okay, now we're going to be adding his 2 teeth. Just get a little bit of clay, a little bit, just a tiny bit. You're going to stick it onto the top of his mouth. You can overlap if you want to, but you're going to have to redefine that edge. So I try to get it as close as I can to the mouth without overlapping onto the top of it. You can take an X-Acto knife and go down the center after you get them placed. It's really cute. All right, we have 2 done. Now the third one. This is our spooky, terrified one. This one is a little bit different because the eyes set quite a bit lower than the other. You just press the eyes in with the flat side facing down. You don't want it pushed all the way in because we're going to want to make a ridge around the eye. So you get that fully terrified look. Speaking of that ridge, we're going to make it now. You're going to need to roll out a thin rope of clay. You'll see it here just in a second. I tested out some and I didn't quite like how thick it was, so I went ahead and rolled it out just a little bit more. It's pretty thin, but it will look good. Just go around the glass gem and then just do the same on the other eye. Now you're just going to smooth out the rim. Don't worry if there's little lines, that will only make him look more worried and stressed out. Do try to smooth it, but I would leave a little bit of it. Next, we're going to add some longer worry lines around the eye, making his eye look bulged. Next, we're going to be adding in the nose like we did on the previous ones. And now we're adding in the mouth. I'm just going to look at the sketch and make the general shape of the mouth, making sure I get where it starts and it ends. Remember, one side is raised up higher than the other. Now just shape it with your tool. You're going to want to make a lot of space inside of the mouth because you're going to put the tongue in there. And you want the tongue to sit lower, and then just smooth the edges of the mouth. Next, we're going to make the indentation for the chin, just sitting right under the mouth. So just take a tool and dip it in. Also, you're going to want to make little lines around the mouth, so it gives it a distressed look. All right, there you go. I think that looks good. Go in with the tool and pull the mouth so it kind of hangs over. It gives it a nice appearance. Now we're going to place the tongue in. It's kind of tricky to get it in correctly, but you just make a little oval and then you just kind of stick it in with another tool. Flatten it out on the inside and then go around it with your tool to make it appear like it is down inside the mouth. And then put a line down the center like so. I'm going to clean up inside of the mouth. Remember that it doesn't have to absolutely be perfect since you're going to add some dark reddish black paint onto the inside. So any little mistakes that you see now, you probably won't see later. The only part that's going to have any color that's noticeable to any errors would be the tongue, which is going to be red. We're going to add the chin next. Remember the indentation? You just need to roll out a little tiny piece of clay, probably about medium size compared to the other smaller pieces of clay. Just stick it right on and smooth it out. You'll need a smaller piece of clay because we're going to be putting on the teeth. Just go ahead and since this is kind of a tricky mouth, you're going to want to stick it directly onto the top. I overlap just a little bit because it's so small of a space, and I can also pull the mouth open a little bit to accommodate for the size of the teeth. Okay, so now I'm going to smooth it out and also create the ridge of the mouth. And then I'm going to kind of push the teeth into place and cut a line down the center. Now we put on the cheeks. Now these sit a little bit differently on the head. They're farther away from the eye and they give him quite a different appearance from the other peppermints. And then once again, you're going to smooth the cheeks out. Okay, we got the last bit of sculpting done. Now we're going to have to put in the eyelids. Okay, if you don't have a screw eyelet at home, this is how you can make a homemade. You'll be using this for the reinforcement part of the ornament, where it hangs from. Okay, now we're going to make the hole in the top of the head where the eyelet goes in, or your homemade one. Don't make the hole too large. You want something for the eyelet to grab onto. When screwing it in, you want to feel a little bit of resistance. And now you're just going to add clay around it and inside of the hole of the eyelet. Smooth it out and then use a tool to make a hole that goes all the way through. Now it's time to bake. Your ornament will need to be placed on an oven-proof glass or metal surface with a baking sheet underneath the ornament. Set the oven to 275. It will need to be in for about 29 minutes. Let it cool before you start painting. I'm going to recommend that you lightly draw in the swirl for the peppermint. I did it a little bit heavier so you could see it, but it might show through. You need to spread on some white paint over the glass, and you're going to need to do about 3 layers of this white paint. If you have trouble with it, you can always wipe it off and put some polyurethane over the glass before you put on the white, and this will give you a better surface for the white paint to adhere onto. You're going to have to put several layers of the white paint onto the face, along with the red paint. Remember to repeat the peppermint pattern onto the back of the ornament. And now I'm adding another white layer onto the surface of the eye. And at this point, you're going to want to add the red onto the tongue and then place the black into the mouth. I just added a little bit of polyurethane over to where I was going to put the pupils and the iris on. You're going to want to thin down your red paint for the iris. Just make a nice circle. And then repeat onto the second eye. Then you're going to go back in and clean your brush totally of all the red paint. Get a little bit of water and then start cleaning the center of the iris out. And then do the same to the other eye. I chose to go back in and add a darker red around the iris. And I came back in and blended it with another brush. Next, I just came back in and made the pupil. You can just use a brush for this, but I chose to use this tool. But a brush is just as good. Next, I'm going to add a shine mark. You thin down the white paint, and then you'll come back in with a clean brush that's been watered down and remove the paint so you can see the iris. And I also went ahead and added some stronger white paint to the edges of the shine mark to give it a nice effect. It's your preference if you want to add the shine mark, but I always add it. Okay, now this is optional, but it's time to add the soft pastel. You don't have to use an expensive brand, but I would recommend one that has good pigment. I like to use pastels to accentuate the crevices, but also it gives you an airbrush effect without having to know how to airbrush. I like to use a stiffer brush for soft pastel and clay. At this point, you'll get a feeling of where the pastel needs to be. And here's what all 3 of the peppermint ornaments look like after they've had the dry pastel applied to them. Looks pretty good. Here, I need to put a little bit right here. It's now time to add a layer of polyurethane gloss finish over the eyes, mouth, and teeth. You can decide if you want to just put it on those areas, or you can recover the whole ornament so it would look like a piece of candy. If you're wondering why I use this type of polyurethane gloss finish over my ornaments, it's because this brand doesn't become sticky and it's UV protected. I also want to tell you, if you decide to cover the whole ornament with polyurethane, you need to wipe your brush off every once in a while because the pastel is going to come off onto the brush and might smear onto your ornament. Next, we're going to make the wrapping. This is just a snack bag. You can buy these at Dollar General. Strange enough, I sometimes find them in the gift section. I'm just going to center the ornament and cut off the extra. And then I'm going to slip the peppermint inside the bag and center it, pinch it to make sure it's correct. Then I'm going to take the ties that came with the bags and I'm going to make the little ties on the end. I'm going to twist and then I'm going to cut off the extra. Then I'm just going to repeat on the other side. There's a little too much on either side, just cut it off. Okay, next we're going to take a tool and make a hole in the plastic so we can stick our ribbon through it. I use a needle and I thread the ribbon through and I just stick it through the hole. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section below. And like and subscribe if you like my content. I'd always like to hear what you'd like to see me make next. You can follow me on Instagram at Just Tuesday Afternoon. All right, they're all done and ready to hang on the Christmas tree. Wow, they turned out great, and I really like them. Thank you so much for watching, and check it out again on Tuesday afternoon.